I did a video several years ago called Legal versus Illegal Tiny Houses. And in that video I talked about the fact that there's a good chance that where you live, tiny houses are actually illegal because they violate either zoning laws or building inspections. And that was a number of years ago that I did that video. And not too long ago I got this comment from Old Snappy. Now this was 5 months ago that I got the comment, but they say, thank you. My husband and I went through building code madness here in Florida about 2 years ago, turning a shed into a tiny house. Please make a video informing people of the repercussions and consequences if they do whatever they want regardless of building codes. I have people commenting on my videos all the time saying we are sheep because we obeyed building codes. Please make a video covering this topic. Well, Old Snappy, I know it's 5 months late, but here's the video.
Tiny House Prepper.
Hey everybody, I'm Bill from Tiny House Prepper, and like I said, I did a video a number of years ago about legal versus illegal tiny houses. If you haven't seen it, it might make sense to go watch that first, because I cover a lot of issues about zoning laws and building inspection codes for tiny houses. So I'll put a link in the description down below this video. If you haven't seen that one yet, I might suggest you go watch that one first before you watch this, so you know what I'm talking about. Now, when I did that video, I actually got a number of responses. First of all, people started arguing with me, saying that I didn't know what I was talking about, that, you know, tiny houses are legal and they have one just down the street and all that kind of stuff. I never said in that video they were illegal. I said they may be illegal, and I said you need to check with your local authorities to find out. You need to go to your zoning office in your county or your township to find out what they will allow, and then you need to go to your building inspector to find out what is allowed, especially if you're going to build a tiny house that's not on wheels, you know, one that's on permanent foundation, like converting a shed into a tiny house. I don't know if they're legal in your area or not. Check with your local authorities and find out. That video was there just to let people know there may be a problem, and I didn't want people to go buy a tiny house on wheels and pay tens of thousands of dollars for it and then find out there was no place they could legally park it. All I was saying is do your homework first. So people arguing, saying that I was wrong, that they are legal. Well, where they live, maybe they are. Where I live, they're not. And then I had a lot of people saying, well, I live in North Carolina or I live in Georgia. What's the laws in my state? Once again, I have no idea. They're going online to try to find out. I have no idea. Like I said before, go to your local authority, to the county courthouse or the township building, and talk to the zoning officer. That's the only way you're going to be able to find out. So, but then I also got a lot of comments like this one. It says, should have never asked them, just do it. And then how about this one? The township you live in is backwards. Time to get creative with housing. So many homeless folks out there. Walk on the wild side. Stop telling the township what you want to do. Okay, don't tell the township, just go and do it. Here's another one. And there's two issues here that I want to address. It says, here's your answer. If on a trailer, do it. If inspector snoops, tell them to get lost and get a warrant if they want to get inside. If illegally parked, put all utilities underground so they can't be easily spotted without some effort. Inspectors hate to get dirty. Well, let's look at the first part. If it's on a trailer, just do it. And if the inspector wants to see them, tell them to get lost. Well, you don't need a permit or any kind of zoning issues or anything like that to build a trailer. That's generally not a problem unless there's an ordinance that doesn't allow you to do that kind of work in your driveway, which there might be. I mean, there's some places you're not allowed to work on your car in your driveway, you know. But if you're allowed to do that kind of thing, yeah, you can go build a trailer. That's not the issue. The issue is you're not allowed to live in it. And I'll talk more about that later. But and then it says, put all utilities underground so they can't be easily spotted. Well, if you're mooching off somebody else and parking in their backyard, and that's where you're going to park your tiny house, it might be possible to do that, to put utilities underground, tapping off of the house itself and running power out to your trailer underground. But most people are looking to be able to purchase their own piece of land and put their tiny house on it. If you do that, you cannot get utilities hooked up without inspections. If you go to the power company and try to get power out to your property, they will not do it unless they have the inspection by the certified inspector, the township or electrical inspector or whoever. And so just hiding the utilities underground just simply doesn't work, because you can't get the utilities hooked up unless you have the proper inspections. Okay, for those of you that don't know us and know our situation, we own our own land, and we live in an RV that's permanently placed on the land. It's a 32-foot RV, and for us it is legal because it was done a long time ago, and so it's grandfathered in. So we are hooked up to the power. We're hooked up to the sewer, the city sewer. And then we're hooked up to a community well that we share with several other people. And I wanted to put a new roof on it, on the trailer. It's a flat roof, like a typical RV. The trailer is never going to move again. It's set here on blocks. It's skirted around it like a mobile home. And I wanted to put a peaked roof on it because I was having some leaking issues. And I went to the inspector to get permits for that, and he wouldn't allow it. He said that it wouldn't hold the weight of the roof up on top. Well, that's another issue. But anyway, so let's look at this comment. It says, my question is why you bothered to get a permit. I thought no permits were needed if you're building on a trailer. There's actually two issues here in this comment that I want to talk about. So, no permits needed if building on a trailer. That's true. It's just a travel trailer. It's just an RV. You can do whatever you want. However, because I have now set it permanently on my property and hooked up to the utilities, the inspector thinks of it more like a mobile home than a travel trailer. And he does have jurisdiction over a mobile home. Now, I don't think he has jurisdiction over a trailer. I really don't. But he believes he does. So the only way to test that would be to go to court. And I just didn't want to get into that. There are building codes for houses, obviously. There are different building codes for mobile homes. And technically, a tiny house on wheels is a tiny house only if it's under 400 square feet. That's because the building codes for mobile homes start at 400 square feet. Below that, there are no codes. So you can do whatever you want on a trailer, on a travel trailer. But like I said, because I have set this permanently on the property, and most of the other properties around us all have mobile homes, the inspector has just taken authority over it, and the only way I could do anything about it would be to test that in court, and I just don't want to go there. So that's why I went to get the permit, because it's obvious what I'm doing. I'm doing the construction work, and he thinks he's got jurisdiction. And then the second part, the porch you built on the side of your trailer is not built with 2x4s. Shed roofs are made with 2x4s. I would have just built it and say it's always been there. So I would have just built it and say it's always been there. When Elizabeth and I were in Bible college, gosh, I can't believe it's 25 years ago now, we were in southwestern Virginia going to Bible college down there. And now, the laws have gotten much worse recently in many areas, and this was 25 years ago and this happened. We had a friend who lived down there when we were there. They owned a house, and it was at the end of a very quiet cul-de-sac, and out beyond them was just farmers' fields. So nobody ever went down the cul-de-sac. There were only a couple houses on it. He went in and built a shed in his backyard. It was behind the house where you couldn't even see it from the road. It was a real nice shed, real solid shed, not just a flimsy little one that you can just kind of move around. You know, it was built on a somewhat of a pier type foundation, and real nice shed. About 2 weeks after he finished it, suddenly he got a certified letter from the zoning office in the city where he lived. It said that you have built an illegal structure on your property. You have 2 weeks to remove it, and if you don't, then you will be fined $100 a day until it's removed. He couldn't possibly go in and say, well, it's always been there. I don't even know how the town or the city found out about it. Like I said, it was the end of the cul-de-sac. You couldn't see it from the road. Did they use drones? I have no idea. This was 25 years ago. There were no drones back then. But he was fined $100 a day after 2 weeks if he didn't tear it down. So he went in and he tried to, okay, can I get a building permit? And they said, no, it's after the fact. You've broken the law. You have to tear it down and then come in and apply for a building permit and rebuild it. I know. I'm just telling you what happened. I know. And then here's another one. Why wouldn't you just do it? Isn't it considered a repair? I don't understand why you have to pull a permit to fix an existing structure. That's a good question. Depending on where you live, you may very well have to get a permit to do repairs. Once again, this is depending on where you live. I know cities are much worse than rural, and I know many places in cities you have to get a permit and an inspection just to put in one new receptacle in the kitchen. It's absolutely absurd. In some places, most places it's not that bad, but in many places you have to get a permit to put a new roof on or to put new siding on, and some places even have color approved colors for your siding, that you can't do anything outrageous with the colors. Now, I've been in the construction industry, building houses, off and on most of my life, 40-some years or more. And I know that a lot of the contractors in this area, well, just recently, more strict rules have come in. But most contractors in this area, if it's inside and it's a small job like that, they don't bother about it. Even if it's a complete, tear out of a remodel of a bathroom or something, technically they should be getting permits, but they just don't because you can't be seen from the road. But anything that can be seen from the road, you're probably going to have to get a permit, once again, depending on the area you live. I mean, some places don't have any. All you have to do is buy a building permit to build the house initially, and then there are no inspections, no zoning, nothing. If you live in a place like that, you're fortunate. Most places are not like that. In fact, when we bought our place, like I said, it was grandfathered in because it has been here since 1977. It's a 77 model travel trailer. And the trailer itself that was on the land that we bought was completely rotted out and nasty. And I actually went in and completely gutted one end of it and rebuilt it, remodeled it. Now, I didn't get an inspector or permits for any of that. It was inside. You couldn't tell that we were doing any work at all. And technically, maybe I should have because of the electrical work, but I just came in to do what needed to be done. But as soon as I try to do something outside, I'm going to have to either get the zoning inspector involved or the building inspector. We built a shed here on the property, and I did have to go get a building permit for the shed. But in our township, anything under 200 square feet doesn't need any inspections. Well, ours came out at 198 square feet, so I didn't need to get any kind of inspection. So I just went and built it, and it was done. But once it was done, there was only one inspection they required. After it was finished, they came out and checked to make sure that it was not within the setbacks. Now, what is that? Setback from the property line. In this area, once again, it's going to be different everywhere you live. But in this area, the setback for the front property line is 30 feet. So you can't build anything within 30 feet of the road. And on the sides and the back property lines, it's 15 feet. So they came out and measured and made sure it was at least 15 feet from my side and back property line. That was the only inspection that I had. If it had been over 200 square feet, they would have wanted to come out and done all kinds of structural inspections of the framing and all kinds of stuff. So those are some of the issues involved. So what are the consequences of ignoring these kinds of things? Well, I already mentioned my friend who built a shed in the backyard without getting a permit. He had to tear it down or face $100 a day in fines. We also had a friend who lives close to us here who had a really nice travel trailer that her mother bought, and they parked it in their backyard for her mother to live in as her mother was getting older, you know. And they didn't want her mother going up and down the steps, the fold-out steps on a travel trailer, so they built a little bit of a porch with some steps coming down so that she would have an easier time getting in and out of the trailer. And her mother lived there successfully for about a year. And it was back behind the house where you couldn't really see it from the road. All of a sudden they got a knock on the door from the zoning officer. Living in a trailer on the property there was not legal. Even though the property was several years old. The property was several acres. They were allowed chickens and animals and things like that. But living in a travel trailer was not legal. And they were forced to remove it or face fines. The problem was not parking it there. The problem was living in it. In many places, in most places, you can park your travel trailer in your driveway or next to your house. You're just not allowed to live in it. Now, where I live, on my property, I'm not even allowed to park a travel trailer on our property, which is ironic because we live in a travel trailer that's permanently placed here, but we also have another travel trailer that we travel with. I'm not allowed to park it here. I have to go down and pay for a rental spot to park it. You just never know about local ordinances, and you just got to check them out. So she was forced to move the trailer and find other accommodations for her mother. Like I said, I've been in and out of construction business all my life, and for about 20 years straight or so, I was in a construction business with my parents, and we built modular homes. These are big, beautiful homes that come in on trailers and are craned onto the foundation. And we have to do the complete building inspection just like a stick-built house. And we had one house that was almost finished. We were waiting on one other thing. I don't even remember what it was now, but it was like a 2-week wait for that subcontractor to finish this one last little thing until we could get the final inspection and what we call the CO, which is the Certificate of Occupancy. Now, the people we were building the house for had to be out of their apartment by the end of the month, and we couldn't get the inspection until like the 7th or 8th of the next month, something like that. So they asked us if they could move all of their furniture into the house, and we said, no, you can't do anything without the CO first. And they begged and pleaded, and finally we said, okay, move your stuff into the basement, but do not unpack anything. Cover it with tarps, make it obvious that it's just storage and that you're not living there. So they said, okay, they were very happy. 2 days before the end of the month, they were able to get everything moved out of their apartment. They put it all in the basement. Then a few days later, we got the final work done, and then we called the inspector. The inspector came out. I was there with him, and when he got there, first thing he did when he walked into the kitchen was he opened the fridge. There was a little bit of food in the fridge. Not much, but like a couple of sodas and a Subway sandwich or something like that in the fridge. And then he walked into the bedroom, and they had set up one of the beds. There was nothing else in there, just the bed. And then he walked into the bathroom, and there was a toothbrush holder sitting on the sink with one toothbrush in it. That was it. The inspector did not approve the final certificate of occupancy. He said that they had 2 days to move out, or they would be fined $500 a day. Because of the bed and the toothbrush, he deemed that they had been living in the house, and he could have fined them right away, but they gave them 2 days. They had to find a rental storage place and move all of that stuff out of the basement, get everything completely cleaned out before he would even come back and do the inspection. So it was great expense and bother for them because they moved their bed and their toothbrush into the house. Well, that's not right. It's their house. They should be able to do what they want. It's not their house to be lived in until it passes inspections, and they can actually come in and condemn the property and not allow anyone to live in it unless you follow the rules. and they were going to be fined $500 a day. That is absolutely huge. And if they don't pay the fine, then the fine will eventually be attached to the house as a lien against the property. And don't forget that the fine would continue to accrue at $500 a day, and all of that would be continued to be attached to the house as a lien. It would very quickly become to the point where the lien against the house is greater than the mortgage itself. So you can see that that would be total financial ruin. So bottom line is, you just simply don't want to violate any of the zoning laws or the building inspection laws. Now here's another comment that I got about violating the local laws. Now this isn't about a house or a structure, this is about animals. But the point is, it's a zoning violation, and here's what happens. Zoning is a problem. We live in a first-class township zoned agricultural, and they live on 1/2 acre. Now they don't say it here, but apparently in order to have the agricultural zoning, you have to have an acre or more. So it goes on to say, our neighbors told the ordinance officer about our chickens. We had to get rid of them or be fined $500 each day in violation, plus responsible for all court and attorney fees, just because we didn't have 1 acre. So here's another person who violated the local zoning ordinances, and they were going to be fined $500 a day. So what am I saying here? I'm saying I don't know what your local ordinances are. I don't know what your zoning ordinances are. Some places will allow you to buy a piece of property and put a trailer on it, an RV or a mobile home. Some places won't even allow a mobile home to be placed on any property anywhere in the entire county. Only you can find that out. I have no idea. I know some places in Texas and Missouri, Missouri and Oklahoma, you can just go buy a piece of property, put on whatever you want, doesn't matter. So what I'm saying is, find out what your local ordinances are and don't violate them. If you do, you could be facing huge fines. Now I'm sure in the comments below here I'm going to hear all kinds of comments about how all of this is wrong and it shouldn't be this way and how dare they, it's my property, who are they to say, and on and on and on. I absolutely agree with you. But these laws, I think most of them, many of them are unconstitutional. But these laws have been in place in urban areas for 100 years. And in many rural areas, they've been in place already for decades, and they're only getting worse. In the state that I live in, it used to be all you had to do was get a building permit, and then the inspections to build a house. Now, I'm not talking about a tiny house. To build a house, the inspections, there were only 2. One was for the septic system, so you don't pollute the local stream, and the other one was for the electrical service entrance. Not all the wiring inside the house, just the entrance where it comes in from, and then it goes down to your meter. Just that. And it was that way for most of my life. Then all of a sudden, about 10 years ago, the state adopted the national building codes and required all the townships to do the inspections. So now I have to get an inspection on every single thing as I build a house. I won't even get into all of that. So if you disagree with all of these, I do too. The purpose of this video is not to say, oh, that's wrong, we needed to go change. No, it is what it is. If you can change something locally, go for it. But it is what it is. And the purpose of this video then is to help you to avoid making those kinds of mistakes where you would be fined for it, or you would make some huge financial mistake by buying a tiny house for, $60,000, and then finding you don't have any place to legally park it, and because of that you can't sell it because nobody else can park it anywhere either. Really trying to protect you, give you a heads up on what the deal is. Check with your local offices to find out zoning and building requirements, and do not violate them, or you will be in serious financial hurt. The other option would be to move somewhere where you can do what you want. I know a lot of people who have done that as well. Find a state or a county or a township that will allow you to do what it is that you want to do. Move there, go for it. Have fun. All right, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. You be blessed.